Hey everybody, alright, we're going to take a little break from the skid steer and turn our attention back to this John Deere 300 once again. So I haven't heard back from Blue Ridge Diesel in regards to the injection pump, so they're still working on that right now. However, I'm trying to think ahead because eventually they're going to make that call and say, hey, it's ready, pay up, and we'll send it back to you. So we know we've gone through the fuel system as far as the new lift pump, new fuel filter, injectors, and obviously now having the injection pump rebuilt. Having put that much money into a rebuilt injection pump and new injectors, which just those things alone, we're looking at probably $1,200 to $1,300. Depends what they tell me about this injection pump. So anyway, a considerable amount of money has been put into the fuel system on this, and the last thing I want to do is ruin any of that because of contaminated fuel in my tank. So if you watch the video when we had removed the old fuel filter, there was quite a bit of junk in the bottom of the sediment bowl, and even after running this while we were troubleshooting, the bottom of the sediment bowl started to get some more debris in it as well. So just to alleviate any future problems down the line, I'm going to go ahead and drain the fuel out of this tank today and clean the tank out, basically. Another reason that I want to get this thing apart is the fuel gauge doesn't work. So on the side of the tank here is the sending unit, and it's just a one-wire fuel sending unit here. So when the tank is empty, we can go ahead and pull this sending unit out, and I'm not sure how I'm going to test it yet. I haven't tested one before. I guess basically just gonna check the ohms reading on it, or resistance, and see. So it's got, you know, a float inside the tank, and as the tank level increases, the float floats, and it moves the contacts on like the it's like a rheostat that's on there. So I'm not sure if my fuel tank gauge isn't working because the gauge is bad, or if because the fuel sending unit's bad. But while I have the tank out and it's completely empty, now's the time to figure out if that's a problem or not. And if it is, then we'll change the sending unit now. So let's tear into this thing. Alright, so my original plan was to just remove this upper nose cone area. And I was hoping I could just pull the tank out after I drained it, but after referring to the handy dandy service manual, that is not the case. It has us removing this aux tank for hydraulic fluid and the air cleaner completely. So I guess the tank is going to shift back and come out between the nose cone and the radiator. Doesn't look like that'll fit, but I guess they know better than I do, right? So yeah, the air cleaner's not a big deal. Taking this tank off, I know, is going to be yet again another oily mess, which I didn't want to have to deal with today, but I guess it is what it is. We did get all the hydraulic filters and fluids to completely change everything out in this tractor, which we have not done yet. I was kind of holding off, but now that we're taking that tank out, I guess we will probably eventually end up doing that this week too. So alright, let me get started, and I'll just show you any of the key points that you might need to know when you get to this point. So right off the bat, I haven't even touched anything yet, and I'm already finding that I'm going to run into an issue. So at the top of this tank is a rubber hose. You can tell that's not rubber anymore. So that rubber hose runs down, tucks under, and plugs in back here. And just due to its age, it's extremely dry and brittle. And as you can see, it's more like plastic than rubber. So that's going to have to get replaced. I figured while I'm taking all that stuff apart, I can be draining this fuel tank. So I went underneath here and I disconnected the fuel line from the fuel tank, and got an empty jug here for some diesel. Now this does have a strainer down inside, but I got a nice lint-free rag here that I'm also going to put in, just as a precautionary measure for me, to make sure I don't get any sediment or debris that might be in that tank into my can, because obviously I want to save this fuel if I can. So of course this thing's going to fight me all day. Let's see here, this should do the trick. Boom. So I'll put my funnel on top here, to catch the fuel. And I just got to keep an eye on it because I think I put about 10 or 12 gallons in it, so I've got another tank. But it should be it. I just got to open up the cutout and see where it's going to drain from and reposition the everywhere. It's going to drain everywhere. Alright, that's not going to work. I'm going to have to put a little tube on there. Alright, got a piece of rubber hose. Should have thought about that from the beginning, but you know, that's how I like to do things, backwards. This should fit on there. Slide this over the tank outlet. It's on there pretty good. Is it on there good enough? I don't know. Alright, that should do the trick. Alright, now I can actually run that hose into my funnel, which is what I should have done in the first place. Let's open this cutout back up. Oh, look at that, amazing. Who'd have thought? And there we go. We'll let the tank drain. I'll try to keep an eye on it so it doesn't overfill, which I'm sure I'll forget about, and it will overfill. Now I can see the funnel's filling up a little quicker than it's allowing it into the tank because I have that lint-free rag in there. So I'm going to throttle down on this a little bit. Let it drain into there a little slower, which is fine. I'd rather know I got good clean fuel going in here than be in a rush with it. So I haven't obviously taken this tank out yet, but the drawing shows that at the bottom of this tank where the cutout is, there's a screen inside there as well. So we'll make sure that's cleaned out. And my lint-free rag isn't draining fast enough. My funnel's about to fill already. Alright, I might have to come up with a different filtration process here. Oh, you know what the problem is? There's no vent on this tank. So I'm going to have to pull this funnel out a little bit. There we go. Look at that. Making a big mess. That's great. Alright, let me deal with this crisis, and then I'm going to have to put a tube in between here to get a vent on this thing. These new gas cans suck. Ugh, terrible. I don't know if that's actually going in the tank or just draining all over the ground. Alright, I'm going to pull a swift one. I'm going to yank this out and stick my finger in it. Oh yeah, good job. Alright, new plan. So this whole thing was just being a pain. I tried using a sock. I tried putting a vent tube in between the funnel and the tank. None of that helped. So yeah, we're just running it straight into the tank, and I'm going to have to filter it back out the other way. It doesn't look like there's a whole lot of sediment in there anyway, and it does have a strainer inside the tank. So I disconnected the wire for the fuel sending unit. There was a line here that's also just disconnected, hanging down. This elbow going from the radiator side, the coolant side for the hydraulic fluid, I was just able to disconnect from the top and swing it over and out of the way. I removed the piping for the air cleaner that's on this right hand side of the tractor. There's one bolt under here for the air cleaner in the middle, and then over on this side you can see the air intake piping over here. Get back out, that I removed from the air cleaner, and 2 additional bolts. So now the air cleaner is loose. I should be able to just yank it out. You want to be careful of your radiator fins. Let me see if I can get this a little better here. One of them things you gotta finagle around. Like I said, you don't want to hit the radiator fins. Alright, so now the air cleaner is out. Set that off to the side and work on getting this hydraulic line off the bottom. I'm just going to disconnect it down here, and whatever's in the tank, I guess will just drain down on the pump. I got a big sheet underneath, so it should catch it all right. And I'm back, and fortunately I did in fact remember to switch out my fuel tank because that one just filled up on me. but I caught it before it overflowed. Let's get this hydraulic line off. Probably never been off before. Highly recommend keeping a supply of pipes. This is from an old floor jack. Definitely nice things to have to help make things easier. Work smarter, not harder, right? Alright. I'm hoping I can, I don't know, I doubt I'll get this bucket under there. I know this is going to make a huge mess. I guess just nature of the beast. I was trying to save all this hydraulic oil and filter changing until after I got the injection pump back and was able to run the engine, because the last thing I want to be dealing with when starting an engine with a new or rebuilt injection pump is having to bleed off hydraulics at the same time. So I like to try to deal with one catastrophe at a time. Alright, it's getting pretty close. And I'm going to get a bucket. I don't know if it's going to fit in there. Oh, that looks pretty milky. That's great. Nope, that bucket ain't going to fit. Oh, good. Yep, definitely need to change all these fluids. Oh, good. Well, nothing came out of there. Interesting. I'm not sure why. I'm hoping it's just because it drained down on its own, but one can never tell. Stick this rag under here for now. I'm on the last bolt of this oil reservoir. Not really sure what the purpose is of it. I know it does go from the radiator. This radiator split, half for coolant for the engine and half for oil, and then it goes down to the pump. I'm assuming suction side of the pump, so the pump would pull it from the system through the cooler, but I'm not too sure. I'm gonna have to read up on it, but either way, that's off. And oh, hello. I need to clean that tank out while it's off. So here's my diesel fuel return line back to the tank, so we'll go ahead and remove that. And then I think there's supposed to be 2 bolts on this side, but I only see 1 and 2 on the other that pull the tank forward. So once those are off, I should be able to pull it back. Now there's a bar up here. I'm not really sure what it does, but I need to make sure I'm careful with that with the radiator as well. If you're really concerned, you can even put up like a piece of cardboard or a piece of wood or something to keep from poking into these fins. The last thing I want to do is buy a new radiator, but with my luck, I'll probably have to buy one once I put this together. And I'm seriously contemplating, once this tank is out, taking these front nose pieces off and painting all this stuff, because come springtime, this whole tractor is going to get painted anyway, and I don't want to have to take all this stuff back apart again. So while I have it apart, I might just throw some old construction yellow on here. So inside here, you can see I was able to get the top bolt off, but I couldn't get the bottom one out because this big bolt in here, the head was in the way. So on the other side, the bottom bolt was missing. So when I put this back together, I'm just putting the top bolts in. But since I got that big bottom one out, I was able to take the big bottom one out on this side as well. And I've just got these 2 inside here, and guess what? Nose cone's coming off anyway. So I just have the one bolt left here to get the tank out, but instead of trying to shimmy it through there, I'm just going to take that nose cone off. I think it'll give us a lot more access. And like I said, while I got this whole front end apart, I might as well paint it, because this whole thing is going to get repainted anyway, and I definitely don't want to have to take this stuff back apart again if I don't have to. So I was careful in the first one and made sure it didn't overflow. But as you can see, my funnel's filled here and this tank is completely full. So got the cutoff closed. Looks like we got about 10 gallons out of it anyway. Hopefully there isn't much more left in that tank. This nose cone should come off. Should. There we go. Look at that big old cast piece. Ain't no dent in this thing. I think I have everything disconnected, which means I must have forgot at least one or two things. So I'm going to carefully get that fuel return line out. This should slide out. Oh yeah, there we go. Ooh, yeah. There we go. Nice. That's a big friggin' tank. I think they said it's a 12 or 13 gallon. Ooh boy. You can look down in here and see all this mess. Got some hornet nest and some mud and dirt dauber and just a train wreck. So we'll get the fuel line pulled out of there and cleaned up. Make sure we cap this hydraulic pump line here. We'll get all this mess cleaned up. I might even take this front piece off and just make it easier to get in there and clean. And yeah, I think I'm definitely going to get everything painted. We'll get this basically from the radiator forward. We'll get everything down, primed, painted, and good to go. We'll get the tank cleaned up, painted, once we get the inside cleaned out. So let's work on getting that fuel sending unit out. Let's see, this should just pop out. There we go. Oh yeah. I'm sure this thing's probably the culprit. Here's the sending unit. So as it sits in the tank, of course it would be this way, but obviously as the fuel level goes up, it moves this little contact to this left-hand side to let you know that the tank is full. And as the liquid level goes down, it sends the electrical signal back to the gauge to let you know that it's empty. So I'm going to try to test this. Probably bring it to work with me. I got some more electronically savvy guys than myself that can let me know if this is working. And if not, they sell these. We can get a new one for it. And but if this is working, I'm going to throw it back in and try to save some money there and just get a new gauge. Well, I think that ought to do it for today's video. I got to grab another can to finish getting the gas out of there, or the diesel. Clean up all these components, do some priming and painting, and replace the broken parts that we broke. There was that rubber tube from the top. I'll probably go ahead and replace these hoses while we're on here. But yeah, I think the intent will be to obviously get the fuel tank cleaned up. That was, in fact, the reason why we did all this. So we'll get the tank cleaned, the sending unit tested. If not, we'll replace it. Get everything cleaned up and painted, and at least I know the interior part of this front end is done. I won't have to disassemble it again come spring when we shoot some paint on this thing. So yeah, I just want to make sure the fuel system's good to go for this, and what better way to start than to make sure the tank's clean. So there is supposed to be, like I said, a strainer at the bottom of this tank. So when I go through the cleaning process, I'll obviously take that out and make sure that's clean as well. But yeah, should be on our way to having a good fuel system for this tractor. So thanks again for watching. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you had a few laughs at my mistakes and enjoyed the video. So I'll talk to you next time.